So that was a really quick break. Welcome to the session, Making Your Social Media More Accessible to All. Again, if you're just joining us, please put remote questions in the QA because no one is watching the chat. Those of you in the room, please hold your questions to the end, and we'll get as many questions in as possible from both sources. If you don't hear your answer, please stick around between 5 and 5:30. We'll have some of our speakers available to answer questions, and some of them will be answered over the next few days and available in our site where the videos are, I think. As a university that prides itself on inclusion, ASU's social media must be inclusive and accessible. Sound difficult? Here's Carrie Larkin, the social media manager at ASU's Ed Plus, to tell you how to make accessible content a foundation of your social media campaigns. Hello and welcome, Carrie.
Hey, everybody. You can just skip to the next one. All right, we've all seen the charter 800 times, so let's skip it again. All right, it is important. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about my journey. So I didn't start with disability. I kind of fell into it, and poor Kathy's going to have to hear this whole speech again. But during the pandemic, I decided I was going to do a diversity, equity, and inclusion certificate because we all had a lot of spare time. And I decided I wanted to do that for more selfish reasons. I wanted to be able to articulate back to the university why it's important to show just diversity as far as culture. I felt like we were still doing a pretty rough job on it. And what I ended up finding in my own kind of ignorance was that I was just as guilty as everybody else because I was not thinking about disability as part of that inclusion. There were many things that I could have been doing this entire time that were more inclusive that I just simply didn't think about because it's not something that's in your face every day, right? I don't have a hearing disability, so I don't think about how that person who doesn't hear, how their everyday is affected and what I'm doing is not being inclusive of them. So I started down this journey and I dragged Kathy with me and I started trying to figure out all these different ways that social media could be more accessible. And let me tell you, there's a lot of hurdles because it's not hard to do. There's just extra steps that need to be done. And I'm kind of one of those people that, taking a couple extra seconds to copy and paste some alt text shouldn't be that big of a drama. And I know that most of you guys aren't communicators, so I just want to kind of push myself as a resource to say that if you guys advocate with me and say like, hey, social media people, hey, communicator people, there are ways for us to be making social media more accessible in general, but not only to push accessibility and make sure that we are inclusive, but a lot of times the way that I have to get them on board is to talk about how it improves your SEO and how it's gonna get you, more people to be thinking about it. And so I started looking at things as more as numbers. So the fact that 20% of Americans have a disability, some of those aren't even reported, right? Those are things like I got in a car accident and maybe I can't walk for a little bit, or I had eye surgery so my eyesight isn't that great. And I know this is probably things you guys have heard a billion times today, so I apologize, but it just really made me sit down and think that there could be a time where I'm gonna need to have those captions big and bold because of something that happens to me, and we should start thinking about this is a family and how we can help our family. So we can skip to the next slide. So when I started thinking about things as numbers, one of the big hurdles I had at first when I was talking about captioning video, and for us, one of the rules I made when I went over to Ed Plus and I asked if I could take over, any video that comes out of our social media channel will have embedded captions. Biggest reason is because lower thirds, a lot of times they are put too low. So now you have text on top of text, which drives me absolutely bonkers. So if we make it as part of their embeddedness, right, and they'll see, oh wait, that's covered and I can move things around. So we started looking at big numbers. So if 12.8% of the US, right, has some sort of cognitive disability, that's 42.5 million people. That's a big number. So this whole idea that oh, we'll carry if 85% of people can get our content, Why are we doing all this extra to go to the margins? And I think these big numbers help us understand why those margins are important. 6.1% of people in the US have a hearing disability. That's 20.2 million people. 4.8% of people have a vision disability. That's 15.9 million people. These aren't small numbers when you start looking at them bigger than just the percentages, which is what a lot of times we're getting right. Like, yes, we're doing this, but all these other, doesn't matter. We need to start thinking about those millions of people that don't have that same access. Skip forward. So we all know why people should alt text. The big thing is I'm gonna show you kind of a brief, sort of shortened version of a presentation that is already up that I worked with Kathy on. So if you go to accessibility site and you look up social media, this is already there. Not only is it there, but I went through Hootsuite, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and put step-by-step instructions on how to make things accessible with screenshots. So if someone's like, I don't know how to do it, ta-da. So we all know alt text is important. One of the big things that a lot of people don't know is they'll say, well, Instagram has an AI version of it. Facebook does automatic text. The problem that it runs into is it doesn't show the feeling or the idea that you are trying to portray. I don't know how many times I've gone in and it says this text may include a person, but that person is portraying something. They're, being excited in front of the ASU charter sign. Like, why would we not want to talk about that? Next slide. So we want to make sure that they're good for screen readers, that they're able to do. I know you guys probably already know all of the little, like, close your eyes, what are the things that stick out. But the reason why I wanted to put this stuff in here is because this is great to show to your communicators and make sure that they know that this material already exists. Next slide. And it also provides tips. So again, there's no excuse for, well, it's a lot of work and I'm not sure what to do. My team, when I brought them on, the first thing we trained on was making sure that our content was accessible. So my team, where are those two girls sitting right there, all know how to go in not only from like our tools that we use to monitor to add alt text, but they know how to do it in every single native platform. I think a lot of times what happens is our communicators, especially social media people, there are very few of us that their only job is social media, especially in the university, right? They are directors of communication, so they're sending out emails, they're doing all of these other things, and a lot of this stuff is already automated for them. Like we heard how all the great things that the WebSpark is doing, where they just have to drop and go and everything's accessible. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case for social media, and there's still quite a few pieces of it that just don't have accessibility as an option. So Instagram and Facebook stories are still to this day not accessible. You cannot add alt text. And same thing with the threads, which is brand new. You can only do alt text if you have an iPhone, so sorry, Android users. But it's, everything is still kind of moving in motion. But there are some cool things that I think a lot of people don't know because they haven't taken the time to understand the native platforms. Example, you can alt text a video on Instagram. Most people don't know that. Okay, so next slide. Again, more tips. I guess we can skip. I guess I'm a little ahead of myself here. The other thing that I think we need to start emphasizing more is the idea of being equivalent. This idea that just because other people can consume the content doesn't mean that I should work on, making it an implementation for everyone. So a big thing that I started pushing is we need to be one-to-one whenever possible. I need to make this so that if the person next to me can't consume it, that's not equal. So again, just more, this is literally all in the accessibility stuff. So skip to the next one. Skip. The other thing that I think is important, and I had to work this out with an agency, which you would think that they would understand how to do alt text, and I'm only putting this in as an aside, is punctuation and grammar matter. I don't know how many times I've seen them where it's like there's 0 commas or periods anywhere in here. This is not how people talk. So just keep that in mind. All right, next slide. Okay, so video captioning to me was a huge push from the day that I started at ASU 6.5 years ago. The way that I got the president's office to do it was I told them, and this is still fairly true, when you are scrolling on your phone, 80% of people don't even turn the sound on, right? You're scrolling, and in Instagram, you have to physically go in and click the sound. So if we want people to consume our information, especially important information, I get so annoyed when we have these giant university like announcements and there's no captions. I'm like, what are you trying to, who are you trying to talk to? But not only that, what we found out is there was one instance where it got missed. I probably wasn't there that day, that's the excuse I'm going with. And we had quite a few people literally comment on Dr. Crow's post, where are the captions? They've always been here, now they're not. What's going on? So you think that it might not have an impact, but as soon as it's not there, people notice. They also help with people who do have some neurodivergency, right? So if you have a lot of people who also need to read as they're hearing it to actually consume the content, what I thought was interesting before is they were talking about like, who here has the captions on? It used to drive me crazy. My teenage sons insist on having captions because they want to see how people's names are spelled. Like I was never thought of it, like especially now that we're seeing more diversity and you're seeing these more unique names, they want to know how things are actually supposed to look. So what I thought was pretty interesting. All right, next slide. So when you're thinking about trying to get your particular person in on, I think the best way to do it is do things through empathy. So there are actual videos in here. So this one, I love StoryCorps. If you've never seen them on YouTube, they're actually pretty fun. They tell these amazing stories through animation. This whole first, I want to say 45 seconds, is text on the screen, no audio. If I'm blind, how am I getting any of this information, right? So when I gave this talk a while ago, I actually had people like, just shut your eyes for the next 10 seconds, turned off the video. I'm like, what was that a video about? What happened? What are they trying to tell you? And they're like, well, I don't know. Well, that's because there's no audio. The next slide. This one's, oh, go back. This is the same. So I must be missing a slide. But there is also a version of it where we have a couple who I pulled their YouTube. You have to turn the captions off or it doesn't work. But they both speak in sign language. So it's a good way for people to understand, like, this is their language of being able to communicate, but you have no idea what they're saying. So again, you can see what's happening on this screen, but maybe you can't consume what's actually, and they're literally just talking about ordering through Starbucks. But I thought it was a good way to show like people who are actually having to deal with this stuff every day. Now you can't consume their content. So what's that about? Oh, what happened? Like many slides ahead. Oh no. Yep, keep going. Yep, nope, no, we're back at the beginning. Okay, there it goes. So he's literally just ordering through Starbucks. So again, you know, for the next 10 seconds, watch the video. Just don't turn the captions on because that's cheating. And then, you know, tell me what they're talking about. Skip. So again, captioning is super important. I know we've probably heard this 800 times, but captioning and audio, if anything, make sure that they both have it. One of the big things with visual people is they like to do like this beautiful starter slide that has like, in 2007, the university did blah, 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 blah. And then like you don't actually get audio for 13, 15, 30 seconds in. There's an entire group of people who have not gotten any of that content. So visually stunning, didn't really do what you needed it to do. And then we can skip through. So the big thing that I just wanted to say, like I said, is I know this isn't learning enterprise or how to help students, but what I do think this is important to think about is your current student base tends to follow your accounts. Do you want them to be able to see themselves in the content that's being shared? So that's one. The second thing is you're showing prospective students that this stuff matters to you. Are you making sure that you're alt texting your content? Are you making sure that you're captioning an audio content? Because you could be potentially losing a student because they don't feel like they are involved. A cute side story is we started changing up sort of our social media strategy, again, to show diversity. And so we have what we call brand ambassadors for ASU Online. And before I started, basically, they came through and said, okay, we're gonna pick these 3, 5, whatever students, and for the entire year, they're gonna be our brand ambassadors. What ended up happening, and I'm sorry if this sounds a little crass, but it ended up being middle-aged white women every single time. And I'm like, I feel like we have more students than that, but that's just me. So we started doing brand ambassador prompts that would call for a specific type of student. The very first one that we did was asking transfer students to tell us their story, why they came to ASU Online, what makes them excited, and boy, were they willing to talk about it. But what we ended up finding is we met Maeve. She is an ASU news story, so if you haven't seen Maeve, she's a fantastic story. She was at a university, she has Tourette syndrome, and she was having such a hard time getting people to make accommodations and stuff for her. What ended up happening is we didn't use her as a transfer story. We ended up using her as a story for sales. That social media post was one of our top ones, and there were so many students on there, again, saying, oh, the sales team helped me with this. I didn't know that this was an option. I've been trying to get flexible learning, whatever, and so I just want to say, like, students need to see themselves in the content that you're sharing, not just making sure that the content for learning, but also for social. It's a huge, huge communication tool, and we need to make sure that we're using it correctly. So feel free to send your communicators my way. I will sit down, hands down, we'll talk with them one-on-one, because good Lord, we need to do better. But that's it. Questions?
Coming right over.
So you started your presentation by saying that if businesses are not willing to use captions and alt text, you convince them by saying that it will help your SEO.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say if you are searching something, so how the Instagram hashtags work, if you have the correct hashtag, your post will be above. So do you think the alt text may also help in getting your post above if you try searching it with a keyword and you have that in your alt text?
Yes, but don't use it as a hashtag in your alt text, just the concept. But be careful that you're not going through and putting like a bunch of just random keywords after your alt text, because that just, one, it's dumb and people are going to be reading it going, what does random banana have to do with what is happening there? But yes, if there's ways to put keywords into your text in general, 100%. The one thing that we've noticed, at least with Ed Plus, is since we've started alt texting, which was July, before I started, there was none. July of last year, I believe, is when we started making it like a priority, because I started in May, so I had to learn, obviously. And it's crazy just the number of followers we've gained just organically without having to do anything. The biggest difference that we made was being accessible.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We don't have any questions in the QA right now. Any other questions in the room? This is good when you get Seth to ask a question.
Oh dear. I'm nervous.
For those who are not us four,
Yeah.
could you talk more about lower thirds, screen layouts, captions, how to
Sure.
arrange things, how to tell people to arrange their slides so there's room for all that?
Yes. So lower thirds, there is a standard like template for lower thirds for ASU, which basically for anybody who's not a video person, it's their name and title that go underneath when they start talking. And so what usually happens is it's kind of like an automatic placement. I'm still trying to work with the powers that be to say, can we please just make it so it's automatically up higher? Because it does tend to overlap with, if you're just using a standard SRT or like captioning through YouTube, it does cover, and I'm not bitter at all. So yeah, that just needs to be moved up like a hair, honestly, so that those captions come up. So the Ad Plus team, the one thing I will say about our content team is they are dope, and I came in and said, hey, we need to do this. And having fought with other teams in the past, they were just like, yep, cool, we're on board. I was like, yeah, thanks guys. As far as, I think images was your other question. So in the deck, there are, again, examples of like things that you can do, tips that you can do to make sure that you're thinking about them. So my biggest one is like, take a look at your image, shut your eyes. What are the things that stand out to you? Because those are the things that you want to portray going forward, and just write that in a nice little sentence in your alt text, so that everybody, again, is getting the same sort of attention that the others are getting. You're welcome.
Any other questions in the room? We still have nothing in the QA.
Thanks, QA. Ugh, I'm
I
just
know.
kidding.
What's up, guys? Get it
I love you guys.
together. Okay, so I have one question.
Sure.
And this is because it's something I learned
Okay.
from another person's experience. So what would you recommend for accessible hashtags
Oh,
specifically?
hashtags. Okay, yes, accessible hashtags. It's in the deck, I promise. They need to be camel cased. So if you don't know what camel casing is, it is the very first letter of each new word should be capitalized. We do run into some issues. So ones that bother me that I don't know how to fix are things like ASU homecoming, where ASU is all captioned. Probably should have been homecoming ASU, but that's just me. But yeah, so you're supposed to camel case when possible. Also think about, and this is just a side note, not necessarily an accessibility thing, make sure you have others read them that you didn't write anything appropriate on accident.
Oh, that sounds like personal experience. Fabulous. Excellent. Thank you so much. Just also, if you default to what the social media has, it will take all your camel casing out. So just make sure you're not defaulting to the prompted hashtag.
Instagram is notorious for making everything small.
LinkedIn too. We're all in this together.
Thanks. I feel seen.
Group hug after the conference. Any other questions? We still don't have anything from the QA. No pressure, QA. We might just be answering all the questions in the presentation, and that's cool. Okay, thank you so much, Carrie.
You're welcome.
That's really great. Some things I picked up from that one were, now there's a place I can send all of those people in those committees I'm on when we're trying to market things and I get the flyer and I can't use it. So I can get them all to go on and learn about social media and how to make things accessible. So thank you again, Carrie. Our last session, Accessible Online Forms, will begin in approximately 6 minutes. So this time you get a real break. You can make it to the restroom and back. We'll be in the Gold Room and in Zoom again. Same place we've been all day. Thank you, everyone. We'll begin at 4:30.
And just a reminder, there's still snacks, there's drink, and we also have our learning experience team right outside the door if you'd like to learn how to hands-on.